Greetings, Philippines. This is a message from Anonymous. Philippines pledges to make the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda a reality and to leave no one behind.
Kinakailangan tayo ang henerasyon na magwawakas sa matinding kahirapan.
Tayo
ang henerasyon
na pinakapursigidong
Labanan
ang kawalan ng hustisya
at hindi pagkakapantay-pantay.
at ang henerasyon
na siyang susugpo sa climate change.
At ito ang gagawin natin.
Ang Sustainable Development Goals.
15 taong plano para sa ating lahat.
Sa bawat sulok ng mundo,
Wala tayong iiwanan.
New York, September 29, 2015. The Philippines joined member states of the United Nations in unanimously adopting the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda in a historic summit held at the United Nations headquarters in New York from 25 to 27 September 2015. Attended by more than 150 heads of state and heads of government, 4 vice presidents, and 30 ministers, the summit was preceded by an address by His Holiness, Pope Francis. Bill Gates talks about his perspective about overpopulation in 2018.
In this year's annual letter, Melinda and I take the toughest questions we get asked and give our answers. One that's come up for a long time is, as we make the world healthier, is the population going to get so big that feeding everybody and maintaining the environment is going to be impossible? Here we can see a chart that looks at the total world population over the last several hundred years. And at first glance, this is a bit scary. We go from less than 1 billion in 1800, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.4 billion where we are today is happening even faster. So Melinda and I wondered whether providing new medicines and keeping children alive, would that create more of a population problem? What we found out is that as health improves, families choose to have less children. And this effect is very, very dramatic. We find that in every country of the world, this is repeated. The population growth goes down as we improve health.
So they introduced this plan by using substitute words like sustainable development or bluebeam sound term to make people happy to accept it, as fascists always do, regime. However, it is not about preserving nature. The real intentions are carried out through deception, hiding the real purpose to take over the whole planet and all its owners rather than a global government. Proponents of this agenda included royalty, such as Prince Charles, who was an ardent supporter of this plan, as can be seen in his speech The New Environmental Agenda, in the World Economic Forum in 2020.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the midst of a crisis that is now, I hope, well understood. Global warming, climate change, and the devastating loss of biodiversity are the greatest threats humanity has ever faced, and one largely of our own creation. Now, I have dedicated much of my life to the restoration of harmony between humanity, nature, and the environment.
President Rodrigo Duterte speaking at the Philippines' 75th UN General Assembly in September 23, 2020, and said the UN blueprint it is the biggest test of the world and United Nations faced since World War II. It means, we must live with many or more people in the future.
It is the biggest test the world and the United Nations faced since World War II. While the United Nations has brought relief and hope to so many countries and peoples around the world, it now finds itself saddled by a virus that has taken many lives and wrecked economies and social order. We are at a crossroads. How we address COVID-19 will define our future. For the Philippines, this means putting up all of the peoples of our United Nations at the core of this response. We will need to ask hard and fundamental questions about the vision and mission that the United Nations conceptualized 75 years ago.
The style planned by the globalist elites that is really headed all of this agenda. And Bill Gates also speaks in TEDx about World War II. They were just the same.
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war.
The shadowy forces behind the New World Order are following a slow-paced agenda of total control over humanity and the resources of our planet. David Icke coined the totalitarian of Pundilla, because they are making very small steps towards our complete and definitive slavery. Their culture and the combined goals of the Illuminati group of Luciferians and anti-mankind, the 2030 agenda for achieving the so-called diplomacy and its called sustainable development, and the previous plans of UN for standards has created an explosive mix. Deeper, more radical, draconian, and spending a lot of money. And Lucifer was declared God by Pope Francis in 2018.
Flammas eius, Lucifer matutinus inveniat. Ille inquam Lucifer, qui nescito casum, Christus filius tuus, qui regressus ab inferis, humano generis serenus iluxit, et tecum vivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
As we know it, there are one of them. The interpretation of Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development Goals are here. Please click the link below and educate yourself off after watching this video. In Philippine UN Assembly, on reducing vulnerabilities, Secretary Balasacan stressed that if we are to achieve our development goals, we need to take urgent action to combat climate change. We have seen extreme weather disturbances occurring with greater frequency and intensity. These calamities can negate our gains in reducing poverty and even push back development. We thus need to put in place climate change adaptation and mitigation measures, particularly at the local levels, and increasing investments towards a climate-resilient economy. Ministerial Conference on the Digital Response to COVID-19. Wednesday, July 1, 2020. Presented with H.E. Fortunato T. Della Pina, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, United Nations Headquarters, New York. The co-chairs of the group, the permanent missions of Estonia and Singapore, for convening this ministerial video conference. Just recently, it was able to participate in the high-level thematic debate on the impact of rapid technological change on SDGs and targets. The Philippines strongly supports the Roadmap for Digital Cooperation launched by the Secretary General. The roadmap, with its three important pillars, connect, respect and protect, is an important framework for universal digital cooperation.
The high-level panel on digital cooperation brings together leaders at the frontiers of technology, public policy, science and academia. Digital technology is changing economies and societies at warp speed and scale, but today's means of international cooperation are not yet equal to the challenge. Technology fools so many aspects of our lives, from personal relationships to business and politics. The enormous benefits of digital innovation are crucial to building a more sustainable world. But there are also unintended consequences. As a global community, we face questions about security, equity, and human rights in a digital age. We need greater cooperation to tackle these challenges and mitigate risks. I am confident that this panel and its resulting report will help advance digital cooperation for our shared future. Thank you.
Smart technologies have also been developed and deployed in the areas of health, such as telemedicine, education, such as distance learning, agriculture, such as urban farming, and in the digitalization of businesses in an environment where physical contact and interaction has been considerably limited. The Department of Science and Technology, DUST, is now looking as to how MSMEs can move faster into the fourth IR stage.
So this is where the microchip implant story begins, for those who want them at least. A clinical setting, a sterile environment, with some rather daunting bits of medical kit. The UK firm Biotech offers implants to businesses and individuals. It's fitted 150 implants in the UK so far, and the number's rising.
In support of these major shifts involving digital response, the government, through the Department of Information and Communications Technology, DICT, continues to develop and implement ICT infrastructure and strategic ICT capacity building programs under the new normal, such as enhancing digital workforce, digital education, and digital governance, and strengthening cybersecurity measures. We make move today before all of our rights are steal. We are anonymous. We are Legion. Philippines. Expect us.